Now let me tell you about the other book. This is the most important book I've read in a long time, and mine is, as you can see, it's quite earmarked all the way through it. Ironically enough, I think this is the most important book for trial lawyers today. Ironically, it is a book written by a PhD psychologist on economic theory. It's written for economists. And he got the Nobel Prize in economics for this book. And it's still the most valuable book I know of for lawyers. It's Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. Because he covers concepts in Thinking Fast and Slow. He covers all the exact same. Okay, chapter 5, choices. The whole thing I just talked to you about. And he's got the two systems, unconscious mind, conscious mind, heuristics and biases. He goes through everything we do, or he goes through everything we should be doing. And he does it brilliantly. So that's an important book for you. Let me see if a couple more things, and then we'll look at closing arguments for just a minute. Yeah, let's do this real quick. Give you an example. Okay. Mr. Jones was 47 years old, the father of 3, and a successful banking executive. His wife had been ill at home for several months. On the day of the incident, Mr. Jones left his office at the regular time. He sometimes left early to take care of home chores at his wife's request, but this was not necessary on that day. Mr. Jones did not drive home by his regular route. The day was exceptionally clear, and Mr. Jones told his friends at the office that he would drive along the shore to enjoy the view. The accident occurred at a major intersection. The light turned amber as Mr. Jones approached. Witnesses noted that he braked hard to stop at the crossing, although he easily could have gone through. His family recognized this as a common occurrence in Mr. Jones' driving. As he began to cross, after the light changed, a light truck charged into the intersection at top speed and landed on Mr. Jones' car from the left. Mr. Jones was killed instantly. It was later ascertained that the truck was driven by a teenage boy who was under the influence of drugs. As commonly happens in this situation, the Jones family and their friends often thought and often said, if only, during the days that followed the accident. Okay, so if only what? Tell me.
A million things.
Start with one.
If only he had gone home early to do chores that day.
Okay, what else? Okay, let's take one. You.
If only he had taken the regular route.
Regular route. What else?
Only you went through that first light.
If he had gone through the light. What else? What else?
Waited a couple of seconds after.
Wait. If only he'd waited a couple of seconds. Okay.
If only he drove the right route.
Okay. Okay, you've made my point. You're a group of lawyers-to-be. Not a single one of you picked out, how about if only the kid hadn't been drunk? How about if only the kid hadn't been speeding? How about if only the kid wasn't under the influence of drugs? How about if he hadn't chosen to run through? You see? Oh, now, why? You're not wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you're proving my point. The point is an extremely important principle. It's called the availability bias or the availability principle. And the principle is this. We make our decisions, as do jurors, based upon the information that is made available to us. 90% of the information that I made available to you was all about things that Mr. Jones did. So when you started feeding them back, deliberating in the jury room, when you started thinking about them in your own mind, you fed back to me exactly what I fed to you with 90% of what was, closer to 90% of what was said. Okay, that's my fault, not yours. Now, if you rewrite that same thing, looking at it from the perspective of the teenage boy and what he did, and him taking the drugs, and him driving the truck, and him doing all the things he did, and then he runs into Mr. Jones, then the if only would be, if only he hadn't used drugs, if only he had, and so forth. You see what I mean? So here's the takeaway from this. You get to make the most important decision in the case, which is, how do I use the availability principle? What do I choose to make available What do I choose to make available to the jurors? And you want to make sure that everything you make available to the jurors supports your theme. It's repetition of your theme. It's coming at your theme from one of those directions we talked about. So that's why the way you do that is you create your story and you create your themes, all having facts that carry your story. So that when they get your story, that's what's available to them. Okay, the Kodak case. I made my information available to them. It was simple. It was simple. There wasn't anybody in that courtroom that didn't know what my theme was. A, then B, then C. The Kodak Corporation said, well, how about this, and 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 they just spread all over the board, and it cost them a few $1 million. But it was a really good lesson. They have a new guy running their PowerPoints now. So think about what you're making available, and make available that which supports your theme, that which supports your story, that which will support a verdict. Okay? Now, a little bit more. So I call that the spotlight theory. Availability. The jury will focus in deliberation where the spotlight was placed during trial. I could stand here and I could do this with you all day. I guarantee you it works every time. So the spotlight is the availability that you decide to make to them. When what you focus on increases, and I want to get on through the representational systems. Now, I'm communicating with you now in 3 ways. I'm communicating with you verbally, I'm communicating with you non-verbally, and I'm communicating with you vocally, okay? 3 different ways. The important thing about that is that that the verbal communication, the words I'm using, accounts for only 8% of the delivery of my message. That's not to say words are not important. Words are crucial. In fact, I'm working on an article right now entitled Words. It's just the importance of choosing the right word. One of our country philosophers said the difference between, the right word is the difference between a lightning bug or striking lightning or a lightning bug. And it's all the difference in the world, the impact of it. So, but words are important. So, but it is only 8% of the delivery of a message. Vocal communication, which is the tone, the timbre, the use of the voice as a weapon. It's also the use of silence. If you got a juror, if you're making a closing argument and you got a juror that's not listening, you got a juror who's just looking down, thinking about the shopping list. If you just stop talking, that juror will look up and see what am I missing? It happens. And then I always you put your hands on the rail, and then as the juror looks up, I reach up and go like this, and it brings her right up. She follows my hand right up to my, next thing you know, we got eye contact. But I don't charge anything extra for those tips. It's all for the price of admission. Okay, so here's the other side of that. Your representational systems, I didn't get the most important point. The vocal communication is 38%, 37% of the delivery of your message. So what's that leave the rest of it? 55%, if you don't remember anything else I say tonight, 55% of the delivery of your message, 55% of the persuasive process is nonverbal communication. Why? Because nonverbal communication is being processed on a perpetual, ongoing basis in the fast-thinking mind, the unconscious mind. It never forgets anything. It doesn't miss anything. It gathers, and so when you get down to these 3 things, they're using their auditory system. This is a jury side now. They're looking at their auditory system. They're listening. They're hearing things. They're using their visual system. They're seeing things. And more than anything else, 3rd grade school teachers figured this out a long time ago. It's called show and tell. You want to be sure that you put a combination of Words and images, words and images, words and images. Your frame should be illustrated by, you should have visual frames. Your frame should have an image along with it. So they're not just asked to remember a word, they remember a frame, they remember a visual that resonates, brings back the frame. And then your frame builds you build your story about that. And then, but the kinesthetic, that's the unconscious mind. That's not something where the juror can say to you, we do focus groups, and a friend of mine who's a great consultant said to me many years ago, he said, don't ask a juror after a trial, or don't ask a person on a focus group, why did you vote the way you did? Because they don't know. They really don't know. And I didn't understand that. And then as I learned more and more about this, I understand it's because the kinesthetic, it's all this stuff they took in their unconscious mind that they don't even know is going on. And that's where the decision comes from. So the kinesthetic is the person that gets back in the jury room and they say, you know, I heard the lawyer's argument. It was extremely good. It was very persuasive. But something about that plaintiff's case just doesn't feel right to me. Can't put my finger on it. Well, that's the kinesthetic. That's the gut reaction. I just don't like that case. Maybe they don't like the lawyer. Maybe they don't like, and they don't consciously not like the plaintiff. But they can't put a finger on it. That's your 55% right there. So the answer to this is then you have to put together a program, a story, presentation, shore it up completely with hard evidence. Tell your story truthfully, don't exaggerate it. Try the case you have, not the case you wish you had. Okay? Try the case you have, not the case you wish you had. That's one of the most important things a young lawyer and most of the old lawyers in the world need to figure out. Because if you're exaggerating, if they think you're exaggerating, you're playing right into their image of lawyers, which is not good.